Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
I am very sore.
Yeah. Just late breaking news.
Well, it's so...
Mr. Hyrox. I can start calling you the Hyrox man.
Alyssa and I are going to do a discussion about the Hyrox.
You guys are monsters.
Yeah, we're going to do a discussion about Hyrox later, in a few weeks, because we have done 2 and now 3. This time in Miami Beach, we did solo. This is the first time we did solo.
So what does that mean?
So that means you do the whole race by yourself.
Oh my.
So before we did the doubles.
So she couldn't carry you this time.
Exactly. And that's exactly, and I actually posted about it afterwards that I had an existential experience about going through this because it kicked my ass.
You had to convene with God.
I did. I literally was praying to God that this would be over because it was killing me. I mean, I had a moment where my legs started to cramp and seize my quads, which had never happened like that before. And then literally I was in the lunges. I just stood there and my whole body is shaking because my legs are just cramping.
It just shows what deep spiritual connection you and Alyssa have when you're together.
I guess.
So Alyssa, you should take solace in that. That's amazing.
It was so much harder than I was prepared for. And it was in that moment, literally. And she was, I could hear her voice. She was cheering me on. It was carrying me. And I realized that the 2 races before, she literally had carried me.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I got to that point, because there was a time in the first time we did it, when I got to the lunges, my hamstrings were clenching and I was able to pass the sandbag and she was to carry,
Yeah. So you got your rest moments.
Right. And I realized she has carried me for my life. I mean, she's the one who carried me to happiness. She carried me to sobriety. She carried me to my faith. I mean, it was metaphorical.
That is amazing. That is really sweet.
So,
I knew she had that effect on you, but not on that level.
I mean, it was definitely on that level. So
you were in Miami this past weekend?
It was on Saturday, and then
we flew Easter.
Yeah, we literally did the race. My race was Saturday morning. Hers was Saturday afternoon. We got up super early Sunday morning to get on a very early flight, get back here. We kept a change of clothes in the car at the airport. So we got the kids in their Easter clothes. We got dressed, went straight to Mass.
Oh, my.
And had a wonderful Easter Sunday, other than the fact that my legs are still sore.
I bet.
And to top it all off, we have we have another Hyrox race this coming weekend.
Oh, my goodness.
In Atlanta, but it's a doubles. And so
she'll carry you.
So she'll carry me again.
Wait, so your body is just going to be. Are you ready for another Hyrox race?
I'm not sure.
A week later.
This will be a good test to see whether I can pull this off.
Oh my goodness!
I don't know. We'll find out.
It just puts my walking up the trails of the Palmilla down to Mexico to shame. I mean, just all week long last week. I checked out last week. I got a lot of texts from a lot of our listeners. A couple of our listeners are friends of mine. Are like, no podcast this week. What? It's spring break. What do you? Yeah. And I didn't listen or read almost anything.
Well, that's good for you. I mean, you need to unplug.
I had
sometimes.
to really unplug and just say, enough.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. And then, the entire world keeps blowing up.
My goodness, we have had a lot of...
Speaking of Mass on Sunday.
Yes.
My goodness.
J.D. Vance meets with the Pope on Easter Sunday, and then hours later, the
Pope you go.
Passes away.
Pope Francis, God bless him. As a Catholic, a new Catholic.
This is the first time
reaction.
I'm going through this process as a Catholic of a conclave, and interestingly, I just watched the Conclave, the movie.
Oh, I hear it's blasphemous.
Well, there are
Pretty
definitely
much.
People who will
and
take
they get
away
it, and they get the conclave wrong anyway.
Do they?
Well, apparently so. I was listening to a podcast yesterday that they really take dramatic license with what happens during the conclave. Probably. in terms of the the transparency or visibility. There is no transparency. There's no visibility. Yeah. It's very they take all their cell phones away. They're not allowed to engage in social media or engage in anything for the next however long it
Yeah,
takes.
yeah.
And it's convening tomorrow.
Well, no, I think it's
correct.
I think it's like 10 to 15 days,
Is it?
or
Okay.
15 to 20 days after the, I don't know.
The service for him is tomorrow. Is that what I'm remembering?
I don't think it's tomorrow. I think it's
Okay.
coming up at the end of the. It's like Friday or
Okay.
something like that. Anyway, I mean, I think he's laying in. He'll be at the basilica for ordinary people to go and
In
pay
an
respect.
ordinary pine box.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, I
Wow.
heard that this morning. I mean, very
Um,
humble, and he's not going to be buried there at St. Peter's. He's going to be buried outside the Vatican.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he has been. I mean, it's been interesting for me to come into the Catholic Church at the time that he's been the Pope, because he's been a controversial Pope in some ways. Where conservatives think that he's been too liberal. Liberal thought he wasn't liberal enough. The centrists, and it's interesting as a new Catholic to kind of see the tumult. I don't pay as much attention to the political stuff that the Pope says, because for me, this isn't, politics is politics, and the church is the church. And so I'm more interested in where the doctrine is, and I've got to learn more, so the all of the little fights.
You're still stripping yourself of the lifelong Mormonism.
Yeah, that and just yeah. So so I haven't really had an opinion about the type of Pope he was, other than I really appreciate that he's a human. He's a man, so he's going to have opinions, and he's going to have, he speaks on behalf of God when it comes to things that are matters of the church.
Sure.
But he also has his own opinions.
Sure.
That aren't necessarily speaking for God.
Yeah. He had some worldly opinions.
Yeah.
So I grew up, obviously, Heinz 57, I would say, and several different exposure to many different denominations. And I can remember being very young when Pope John Paul II was selected.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at my grandparents' house. And that was like this momentous thing for my grandmother, who was raised Catholic, Italian, American, immigrants, the whole thing. And it was just, I didn't understand. It was this big thing. I was being raised at that time Episcopalian,
Mm-hmm.
which is Catholic light. And now they've kind of gone off the deep end, especially on social issues. And I've moved away from that and consider myself now more of an evangelical, but still have to, have a mother who's very involved in the Catholic Church and feel just as comfortable in a Catholic mass and around Catholics, and some evangelicals aren't, which I find strange.
Yeah.
And it's that whole push-pull between Protestants and Catholics that has existed for so long. I just find it really strange, because I find grace and faith and peace and fortitude and all these wonderful things,
Right.
and wherever you look.
Right.
I mean, when we were in New York for New Year's, I really wanted to go to St. Peter's. And I picked the best time to go to St. Peter's. It's when Cardinal Timothy Dolan was preaching.
Yeah, he's great.
And it was packed. And I came in late, and I walked in, and I got a seat on like row 97 or something like that. I got great pictures of him. But I mean, at that point, and I'd be appreciative of what our listeners think, or even what you think, and listening to everything that has been said about Pope Francis, I think it's time for an American Pope.
Yeah, maybe. It might be.
I really do. It's been long enough.
Yeah. It's interesting when you look at the numbers. There are 53 cardinals that will be in the conclave from Europe. There are 30-ish, I think, from North America, and 20 something from South America,
from wherever else. Yeah.
And then there's Asia and the oceanic. So we the things that I've seen are the two big growth areas of the church are Africa and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And so the cardinals, there's a couple cardinals, one's Asian and one's African, that seem to be in the mix as not front runners, but in the mix of there's only a handful of all these cardinals that are in the mix, right?
Well,
And
there's been some criticism online that Pope Francis kind of stacked the deck in terms of his people who he would rather have as his successors, who lean more left.
yeah,
And
well, I mean,
and more left
he's
in their views of some social issues like LGBT, and then also just economic issues.
right.
I mean,
Well, I mean,
Pope Francis, for just to be charitable, was a Marxist. Did not,
I don't know about Marxist, but he was definitely liberal,
yeah,
left of center.
he did not espouse the virtues of capitalism.
Not as much.
No.
And he was South America. He was from Argentina. So I doubt we'll see a repeat of that. I feel like I don't know, but that's my guess.
I know there are some in the mix.
Yeah. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch the process. And what happens is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's definitely not up to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
But someone like a Timothy Dolan would be amazing just because he's so charismatic.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. We
but that's
know
not gonna
that,
happen,
but
yeah.
but he would be amazing. It'd be
Yeah,
incredible.
there was an American cardinal that was mentioned, and I can't remember who it was, but there's probably 6 or 8 cardinals in the mix for.
Yeah, I heard an assessment this morning that there might be a push for someone who's moderate and young to kind of bring the both factions together. But I mean, regardless, the Pope has a responsibility to speak biblical truth and to speak from the heart of the Gospels.
Yeah.
And hopefully whoever is the next Pope will do that.
Well, I think it's a given that they would. I mean, it's just for the most part. And I guess there's been cases in history where they haven't been as scriptural.
I mean, listen, John Paul II still casts a very large shadow.
Absolutely.
I mean, a tremendous shadow.
He was such a consequential pope at a consequential time.
Absolutely. He helped bring down the Russian.
Right.
Along with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. And the communism, the national or the international movement of communism.
Absolutely.
He put a halt to it. The trifecta.
They were the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, there's no other way to really look at it.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And God was blessing their movements.
Absolutely.
And history's better for it.
Yeah. So we'll watch that process. That'll be interesting.
There'll be a lot of black smoke until there's white smoke.
Until there's white smoke. How cool would it be if there was like white smoke the first?
That would be unusual.
That would be unusual.
Apparently, I mean, Pope Francis is one of the fastest. Which
is that right?
I did not know.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it took several days, and then boom.
Huh. Okay.
Here came the white smoke.
There we go.
Yeah, it makes me want to go to Rome, and also
you want to be there when. What? I guess that would be cool to be there when the white smoke comes
I haven't been to Rome, and
I know you
have.
You haven't.
No, I've not been to Rome.
Oh wow!
But I have two excuses. One is I should go.
Yes.
I've been to Israel, so I have that perspective, but I've never been to Rome. And also our friend of the show, yes. Brian Birch,
2-time guest.
He had a confirmation hearing 2 weeks ago. Didn't let us know. Barely let his family know is what I found out.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was like a game time decision, and that was on the 8th. And I thought it went really well from what I saw. But no vote has been.
Yeah,
so I mean, for our listeners who don't know, Brian Birch, formerly with Catholic, or I guess he's still with Catholic Vote. Dramatic organization that really pushed Catholics to President Trump in this last election cycle and towards conservative social issues.
Yep.
And became very active in those issues, as 300 and something Catholic churches have been attacked over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Just tremendous ridiculousness. And he's been nominated to be ambassador to the Holy See.
That's right.
And the Pope approved it, which I did not know that he needed to do, but he did. So the Pope approved it.
Is he going to have to get reapproved now?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because he's had his hearing, but they've not had a vote.
Yeah. So he needs the confirmation vote. And boy, talk about interesting timing.
Yes.
I mean,
really interesting timing.
New ambassador to the Holy See, new Pope.
Yeah.
That'll be That'll be wild.
So now I need to go to Rome.
Yeah.
Once he's installed.
Well, yeah, definitely. Go say hello.
Say hello.
That would be cool.
That would be great. We should all go.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So what else is going on?
What isn't going on? Well, we
markets are back up today.
The markets are back up. They've been down. They've been up. They've been down. They've been up.
There's
again.
a lot of the latest is there's a lot of fear about what Trump is doing. Whether he's going to fire Jerome Powell,
which would be a really bad idea.
Probably a bad idea. The markets probably would react pretty badly over that. So I doubt that would happen.
Powell deserves a lot of criticism how he's managed the last several years, but there's one thing that I do believe in, and whether it exists or not, the independence of the Fed needs to be at least structurally maintained.
Yeah. The thing but here's where people need to understand how off the rails the Democrats have become.
Oh my.
So we are in economic turmoil as a result of this ongoing tariff issue back and forth. The markets have been up and down, and
because it hasn't been well thought out or well executed.
Right. And
no doubt.
But the Democrats don't seem to be seizing on that. They are putting all of their chips.
They're for tariffs overall.
Right. So they're missing an opportunity where it affects millions of Americans they've decided that, oh no, we aren't going to deal with economic issues. We're all in on bringing illegal criminals back to the United States.
Bring us the friend of Abrego Garcia.
I am astounded. Chris Van Hollen, senator from Maryland, went down to El Salvador to meet with what he calls his constituent, because this illegal alien lived in Maryland.
Beat his wife.
Had a restraining order placed against him by his wife. Has MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles.
Yeah.
Is known in law enforcement in Maryland to be a member of MS-13.
Yeah.
Was deported because he's a member of MS-13. And somehow Van Hollen believes that it seems to make sense to go to El Salvador to meet with him and try to get him back.
Have margaritas with him.
Well, even that became a whole issue. They staged those margaritas. We didn't even know that was happening. It's like this whole thing is just bizarre.
On the taxpayer dime.
Yeah. Well, you had a whole bunch of members that went down there and didn't get access to Abrego Garcia, Kilmar. Abrego
I've been
Garcia.
calling him Alfredo for some reason. I don't know
That
why.
seems weird.
Yeah. It's a Fletch reference. Some people who listen to our show will get it. Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia and a cup of hot fat.
Yeah. And so...
Oh, come on. You got to laugh at that.
Yeah.
Fletch,
that's a classic. I need to go home and watch that today. But it seems just completely out of touch that the Democrats have put so many chips in the let's protect illegal immigrants. The whole point of our immigration law, and what's weird is that you can go back and watch clips of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden years ago, Chuck Schumer talking about deporting criminals as a standard practice.
I saw one of Hillary Clinton the other day.
Yeah,
was making the rounds online.
That is the way that this needs to end. And so then it happens, and the Democrats decide, oh no, that's happening. Republicans are doing that, so we need to be on the opposite side of that.
But when did Democrats decide that the rule of law was something to uphold? When?
Yeah.
Where was the rule of law when his other constituent, Van Hollen's other constituent, a woman who was murdered by a MS-13 member, a mother of 5? Where was the rule of law and due process for her?
Yeah. Well,
and I love how Democrats frame due process. This guy's been adjudicated how many different times?
Yeah.
He got sent back to his home country. Big freaking deal.
That is the process.
Yeah. So what?
That is the process.
Oh, but there was a hold on it back in 2019, which is expired. It's crazy
Yeah.
that they want to die on the hill of illegal murderers and rapists versus expelling them as fastly as they can and pivoting to another issue.
Yeah.
Because it's an issue they lost on overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
In this election.
It does not make sense. When you look at, so Trump's numbers are down because of the economy.
Because of the economy.
And they're leaning in on literally, I can't think of another issue in which they could lean in on that is going to backfire worse than this one.
But they're leaning in on the trans issue too, up in Maine and everywhere else.
Yeah.
Here's the number that shows you where the Democratic Party is. First of all, their polling is not doing well either. They're they might be in the teens and the small 20s.
Yep.
But you know whose polling is doing great? Who? Sandy Cortez.
Oh, well, among Democrats.
10 million, $9.5 million she raised in the last quarter. Which
AOC.
That shows you Sandy Cortez, which shows you where she is. In the lexicon of the Democratic Party, that's where it is.
Well, and this is actually an issue.
She's polling 25% as president.
Yeah, there are many Democrats who are getting a little bit concerned that she is taking the mantle.
Yeah,
that Bernie Sanders built.
Bernie is giving her the mantle.
He is passing the torch to her, and I think there are some Democrats who are not comfortable with that.
Yeah,
as they should be uncomfortable.
Well. You would think, but they seem to be leaning in as well.
I don't think I think there's a lot of...
They're not defending men, playing in women's sports, or no, they're defending men and playing in women's sports, and they're defending MS-13 members.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch, because as we get closer to 2028, I'm assuming that the economy... that the economic issues are going to get figured out. I don't know what happens in 2026 if it happens.
Listen, I'm a broken record on this issue, but our congressmen, our Republican stalwart congressmen who are listening, which includes our good friend David Schweikert, this tax bill has got to get done.
Yeah, they got to get the tax bill done.
If you want to pivot off of tariffs, and give some certainty to the market, certainty to small business, certainty to your constituents, get this tax bill done.
Yeah.
Because the markets are squirrely about that as well. It's not just the tariffs. It's what is going to happen on December 31st.
Right. Well, they get that figured out. That helps them a lot in 2026. And that certainly helps Republicans carry on in 2028 beyond Trump. And I think it puts the Democrats in a defensive crouch, and they've remained in a defensive crouch.
They're going to vote against it, and people are going to be upset.
Yeah,
especially if my advice would be to separate those issues. But if the tax on tips and Social Security tax and all that is wrapped up into it, I would take that. I look at that as another bite at the apple. You can bring that back next year. Mm-hmm. No harm, no foul. But extending the 2017 tax cuts in their entirety, making them permanent, is really the key issue.
That's the juice to the economy for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You're exactly right.
I mean, and the proof is the fact that the Democrats didn't want to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
2 cycles. Exactly. 2 cycles. They never wanted to touch it.
Right.
Because they knew it was a losing issue. Because they knew that the effect that it had on the economy, the effect that it had on people's businesses. And they're not going to be... There's 2 things where you can lose your job in Washington, D.C. Cutting spending or raising taxes.
Right.
Now, the proof in the pudding is going to be whether this Republican Congress can reduce spending, create a new budget baseline come to September 30th.
Right. That is the good test.
I don't see it happening.
Well, I mean, they're proposing a pretty dramatic increase in the Pentagon budget.
To $1 trillion is what Trump wants.
Yeah. I'm not sure I understand why, if we're going to be pulling troops out of all these other places, but...
Well, the Pentagon's a little bit of a mess right now.
Hegseth's under some pressure. The president has stood next to him, said he's got my support.
For how long?
I don't know. I
don't think it's a polling issue.
No, I think that, I mean, look, there's a lot of the Pentagon is no different than the rest of government in the sense that there are people in the Department of Defense who have had their little fiefdoms for years, and Hegseth is coming in, and he's doing everything that this Trump administration wants to do, which is disrupt to try to weed out the inefficiencies. And so there's going to be a lot of pushback. So I think there's a lot of people in the building against Hegseth.
Yeah.
And that's going to make it more challenging. But I think that's the process that we're going to see play out in almost every department. Probably every department.
Yeah, you had a number of Hegseth confidants dismissed.
Yeah,
walked out of the. I'm Dan Caldwell, who I've known for a long time since he was at Concerned Veterans,
and we still don't know exactly what the investigation.
I have no idea
what they were, put on leave for and then fired, and I don't think that they know. Is my understanding.
Yeah.
So
they were escorted out of the building. I was shocked.
We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So there's going to be a lot of upheaval. It's not going to get changed unless there's some changes made.
Yeah.
And these changes are going to be painful for the people who have had these fiefdoms and this job security and other things for.
Well, it seems like wherever the missiles are pointed at in the government is where all of a sudden the upheaval begins to happen.
Right.
So right now, I mean, with the Pentagon budget and the waste, fraud, and abuse that exists there, it seems like.
And there's a lot.
There's a ton.
I mean, and this goes back decades, folks. Remember the $900 hammer and the $1,000 toilet seats. I mean, this is going to be messy.
The Pentagon procurement process is corrupt.
It's corrupt.
It is absolutely corrupt. It's been corrupt for years.
I mean, all you have to do is look at who staffs the military industrial complex. The outside contractors are all jam-packed with former generals.
Yes.
Former, whatever rank.
Yeah.
Of people who have buddies on the inside. They're doing the back scratching. This is happening. And so it's going to be messy to get it cleaned up.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So as much as we've seen in other agencies, the waste, fraud, and abuse, the same cycle is happening in the Pentagon.
Well, we know it's bigger because it's just a much bigger budget. It's the biggest budget we have, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a problem. So it's going to take some
asking
fixing.
For $1 trillion without getting back to some sort of baseline there, it's kind of seems premature.
Well,
we also don't. Billion, trillion.
We also don't know exactly. We are definitely woefully under-equipped on a number of things, especially warships.
Oh yeah.
So
submarines, warships.
So there's probably some of that involved. We can actually get to the bottom.
We got to get to the F-47 up and running.
Yeah.
And what's going to replace the A-10?
I don't know.
That's a big loss.
That's a big loss. That's a hit for Davis-Monthan. Right?
Well, it's a hit for Davis-Monthan, and it's a hit for the Air Force, for the Army especially. The Army, it's interesting to watch those hearings in the past when our friend Martha McSally was leading the charge to keep the A-10 where it was, and rightfully so. But watching the Air Force make a case against the A-10 because they want to expand other forms of aircraft, and the Army is saying, no, we need the A-10 because we're the people on the ground fighting. Yeah. And when the enemy hears that thing coming, they run.
They scatter.
and we win.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that will be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Listen, in the Air Force defense, the A-10 is a very expensive aircraft to maintain, but it's a flying tank.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing to behold when that Gatling gun starts gatling.
Right. Well, and look, I'm not an expert in, military equipment and the things that are the most important in the war powers and those kind of things. But I do know that we have to be in a position where we can be more flexible with the type of weaponry that we are producing. And I think the days of having massive programs where we pour billions of dollars into a particular fighter jet, is probably coming to an end.
Yeah.
I mean, the F-47 is probably going to be the last of the big ones, because with drones and automation and, all these things that are going on, AI, warfare has already changed.
Yeah,
it is
completely
changing. So we have to be prepared for that.
Maybe they're considering building an A-10 drone.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, close, air support.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense.
Maybe
you could armor that thing up pretty good.
Yeah.
And get it in and out quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe there's something out there we haven't seen.
Well, I'm guessing there probably is.
Yeah, that's why you got like Area 51, right?
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
It's aliens.
Right.
No, it's actually, big bat-wing fighters.
Yeah. So we are going to transition. So there's a new little tidbit we do. We're calling it, at the moment, our working title is Quick Hits.
Quick Hits.
I did a couple of these while you were gone on spring break.
I think we should call it dark beer shots.
Dark beer shots?
Yeah,
okay.
Or light beer shots. Or dark money shots. Dark money shots.
Money shots. Weigh in, folks, if you'd like to help us get a title on
or
this
send
thing.
us some.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Send us some quick hits to react to. Well, our fearless producer, Alex, has...
Alex is fearless.
Put together a few clips for us to respond to. And so let's take it away. All right. The first of these is, this is a video of Nancy Mace having a confrontation with a constituent.
Yeah, I saw
Nancy
this.
Mace is a congresswoman from South Carolina, actually in the old Mark Sanford seat.
Okay.
South Carolina on the coast. She has been an interesting character in Congress.
I think that's putting it lightly.
She's been very conservative, very moderate, very conservative, very moderate, kind of draws a lot of attention to herself, not always positive.
No, yeah.
So just a reminder, like and subscribe, folks. This is important for us. It's important for you because you get great content.
And you can help grow the show.
That's right. We appreciate.
Yeah, which we appreciate very, very much.
So let's take a watch of this.
Nancy Mace, here we go.
I do them every year.
Every year.
You want to keep going?
Do
you want to keep going and keep harassing me? You could have gone to a dozen town halls last
I
year.
asked if you're doing any more this year. It was one simple question.
Yeah.
Are you doing a town
I've
hall
already
this year?
done one. I'll do
Are
plenty
you doing
more.
any more this year? It was a simple question.
You're always invited.
Okay, sweet. Well, look
And
out
by
for
the
an
way,
actual invitation.
I voted for gay marriage twice.
What does that have to do
so
with me?
I'm just saying, it has everything to do with you.
Do you think everything about me has to do with gay marriage?
I do,
That's
absolutely.
your first stance when you
Yep.
speak with me?
Absolutely.
There's no other humane
If you want to get in my
conversation you
face
can
about
have
town
me?
halls, you should have shown up
There's
to
no
one
other
last
humane
year.
thing you can talk about me just saying, oh, I support gay marriage.
Yeah,
That's the
because
only
you're
thing
getting
you
in
have
my
to
face
say.
about a town hall. You
All I
could have
was
gone
asking one
last year.
simple question from
Would
right
you
over
like
here
me?
is if you have any plans to have more town halls this year.
I have town
That was
halls
one
every year.
question.
I have over a
Okay.
dozen every year.
Great. That was my entire question. You didn't have to go
Yeah.
into the spiel about
You could
everything
have
else
you
wanted
could
to.
have come to any of them last year.
Okay. And I'm
I had
asking you
over a
about this year,
dozen.
not 2024. But
Where
we're
were
in
you the year
right?
before that?
Okay.
Or the year before that?
It was a simple
Oh,
question. I
because you
asked
know
if
what?
have
Because you
any more that
people
you're
on the
going to
left
this
are
year or not.
crazy.
So I'm
You're
on the left.
absolutely crazy.
I'm absolutely
You are.
crazy.
And get out of my face.
You're insane.
Goodbye.
You're insane.
You.
You're gonna me. You're
Yep.
gonna be voted
Bye.
out so fast this year. I
I'm
can't
not.
wait for you to
Not.
go into
I
the
won by
dark.
so much.
You're a disgrace to this state. That's what you are. You're a disgrace. I asked you a simple question, and you just to go on this tirade and tell me you.
Yeah. You.
Disgusting.
Get out of my face.
You. How about
Get out of my face. Try. What's your name? What's your name?
That's
What's
my
your
name?
name?
You say me?
Yep, I
That's
sure
the
did.
first thing you're gonna say to me is me for asking you a
Absolutely.
question.
Get the out of my face.
You.
Now.
You.
You. You couldn't take me on, baby. Stay the away from me.
What am I seeing? Who,
So-
who am I looking at?
So here we are. This is a
I voted for gay marriage twice, she says.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what
which she
she-
did.
yeah. So I mean, it's fairly evident, and I'm guessing that they had, he must have said something to her ahead of time. The fact that he's gay, really doesn't mean much. But he's asking when she's going to have a town hall, and she's like, "Well, I've had town halls. I had them last year." But the amount of vitriol, the F-bombs that they drop at each other, it's like, Congresswoman Mace, I mean, just step away.
Yeah.
This is completely
This
unnecessary.
this is the stuff that people hate about their representatives.
Yeah.
Like-
It is. So it goes to
And
What we've talked
quite
about,
frankly, he's out of line too.
well, he's out of line and wants to, the camera's on, he's performing.
Yeah.
Why the heck is she out there with a camera on? I mean, it's like,
Well, she's always looking for the camera.
It's the clickbait crap that you
Yes.
have mentioned.
Yeah.
What clickbait coin?
Oh, clicks, coins,
Clicks for coins.
Yeah.
It
Chicks, clicks, and coins.
Yeah,
that was Matt Gaetz.
yeah, and she's following that lead, which just does not make any sense. That's not the path to leadership. In the sense of being a leader, being a representative, representing your constituents. I mean, here's a constituent asking a question rather than just have a conversation. They get into this F-bomb argument.
There's no reason for that at all.
No. So 0 for 1, Nancy Mace.
Well, Nancy's going to do what Nancy does.
Yeah. All right. So on this next one, we have China taking a stand, saying
yes.
we're in. If we're gonna have a trade war, we're gonna go right to the very end on this. Remember, folks, like and subscribe. You got to watch this.
Helps
stuff.
grow the show. We
That's
appreciate
right.
it.
All right, let's take a look.
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Right. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before. But now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world.
Well, my biased view is really influenced by the fact that the entire world shut down for better part of 3 years because a virus was unleashed in a Wuhan lab paid by the U.S. taxpayers.
Well, so the interesting thing about this is that he goes into, we were here for 5,000 years without the U.S. economy, but China has changed dramatically as a result of trade with the United States.
Absolutely. And
he says he was a descendant of peasants. They will go back to being peasants.
They will go back to being peasants because without the U.S. market pretty quickly.
They export stuff to us.
4 times as much product, I mean, in terms of total value, than we import to them.
I mean, it's...
And the intellectual property loss that we've had over the last 20 years, 30 years to China. Well, it's immeasurable. It's absolutely immeasurable.
The fact that they, the Chinese government, which is a communist government, it props up the industries in China. They allowed Tesla to have a manufacturing plant there because they said you can only sell your product in China if you manufacture it here. Well, and so he built a plant. And then they stole the technology.
Yes.
And started BYD, gave it all to their Chinese.
That's what they do.
Communist-run company.
Yes.
And which is now,
The only reason there's a burgeoning car industry in China is because they stole all the technology from our car companies.
Exactly. And so...
They've stolen all of our military technology. They've stolen all of our computer technology. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They've never invented anything on their own.
It will be very fascinating to see how this plays out because China will collapse if this tariff issue continues.
Well,
long before the United States has a problem.
The other issue with China that is a societal issue, and that is their approach to the family and their approach to any type of organized religion or anything else. That is helping to bring China to its knees.
Of course.
Because
You
they
take
have
God
a-
out of
they-
take God out of it.
they have a population issue, but they also have a population thirsting for faith.
Yeah.
And you talk to people who have immigrated here successfully and are not being targeted by the Chinese government to bring them back. I mean, you talk to some of those people. I've been in some of those meetings. That they want to exercise their beliefs
Yeah.
in God, and they can't do that in China.
That's right.
That's a huge issue there.
This arrogance.
There are Chinese churches, but they're
the arrogance that this guy is exuding is one which is gonna come back and bite.
But there are some things there that he says that are true, and that China does take the long game. They do look at that, and they are a formidable adversary for sure. You have to treat them with respect for sure. No, I don't think we're disrespecting them.
No.
And I do not believe that we've executed the tariff strategy well in this regard.
Well,
We should have waited on China after we did a trade deal with Japan and Singapore and just gone around the horn and made sure that we had those deals in place.
Well, and I think that that's kind of underway now. The hold on the tariffs, the 90-day hold, while increasing the tariffs on China, I think was a reflection of trying to get those pieces in place to maximize the leverage on China. Because what we don't want is our legitimate trading partners, Japan and other Korea and those
cozying
others,
up with China.
to cozy up with China.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't help our situation. Because when it comes to trade, I mean, free trade is the trade of goods. It's not necessarily, I mean, the trade imbalance that we have with China is a problem. I mean, we're sending trillions of dollars over there for the stuff they're sending, but we're not sending enough stuff over.
No.
I mean, so it's not a trade. It's not free
Well,
trade.
and we
in
can't
that
send enough
respect.
stuff over to make sure that we don't hand over all of our,
Right. Those are issues.
our
we have to deal
intellectual
with.
property,
So
which they don't respect there.
absolutely. So we'll wait. This will be one to watch for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we have this next one is Richard Wolff, and he is discussing the end of the American Empire.
Oh,
This will be an
I've
interesting
heard that
one to
before.
watch. Remember, like and subscribe.
helps grow the show.
Check this out.
It's over. The empire is on its way down. You can live with that. You can make that decline manageable. You can avoid a trauma, or you cannot. For every example of an empire that went down traumatically, I can give you one that didn't, and vice versa. That's a choice we have if we take it seriously, which our leaders do not. The unthought through strategy of Mr. Trump doesn't yet take into account that there's another competitor who can buy if you don't, who can sell if you don't. You're not what you were. In the latter half of the 20th century, it all made a kind of sense. The United States says jump, and everybody asks how high. But we're not there. Nobody can afford to build houses in America now. Add 25% to the cost of lumber, kiss it goodbye.
Very controversial.
Very controversial. I don't think it's over. I think that I mean, look, there are definitely some things that he says that you can say, okay, I can see where he's coming from. But we have to, I mean, I think what Trump is trying to do is protect ourselves from being held hostage.
Yeah.
On the products that we have to import. And by
the products that have strategic national security implications.
Yeah.
We need to be brought into
or even national
production.
economic implications.
Absolutely.
And lumber is a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, lumber's, yes, you added 25% tariff on lumber. That's going to have at least a short-term impact, but it's also going to mean that we're going to produce more lumber in the United States. I mean, it's not like we have a shortage.
We need to produce more lumber in the United States. We need to produce more natural gas, more fossil fuels. We have an abundance of riches in this country that we do not take advantage of.
Right.
And to the extent that he's talking about the empire ending, to the extent that that may or may not be true, we've done it to ourselves.
Well, yes.
We have a debt bomb that's coming due
Right.
this year. That debt needs to be refinanced this year. If anything, Trump is acknowledging the fact that we have these issues that need to be corrected quickly.
Right.
And we're running out of time.
This is the decline of the empire. You can, I don't know exactly when you can peg. I mean, probably around the time that the WTO was formed, frankly, because that's when our imbalance with China really started to explode.
Exploded with everyone.
But it's the policies that have been promoted by Democrat presidents and Democrat houses and Senate that, that lock up our ability to produce things here.
Yeah.
I mean, the environmental stuff, all of the use of the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, things that are cudgels against industry.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Cudgels. That's a big word.
It took me a while to get it out. I was going to say club, but I came up with a cudgel. No. But when the Center for Biological Diversity can sue the federal government over a process violation that stops development or stops thinning of forest or what, you name it, it shuts down the ability for us to have.
That's my point exactly. We've done it to ourselves. Yeah. When we rely on other countries for resources, when we rely on other countries for other things, we are accelerating our decline.
Yes. It is self-imposed.
It is completely self-imposed.
And it is the fault of the progressive left.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the problem.
And Joe Biden, probably that administration has accelerated the most.
Yeah.
When they shut down our gas industry, shut down our natural gas industry, shut down our liquefied natural gas exports to Europe and other places. When they've shut down clear-cutting forests.
Yeah.
Or
not
thinning,
even thinning.
Thinning. Excuse me.
Just projects that thin the forest for fire management and also give
Although
lumber
you can
to
clear cut sections and then replant.
Yeah.
Just like
exactly.
I mean, Canada does that quite well. You can see it all throughout the British Columbia.
It's why their lumber's cheaper than ours.
Yes.
And so we put this tariff on. Yes, we just need to produce more here.
And we have plenty here.
We got plenty here. All right.
God bless America.
God bless America.
It's about time we start blessing America.
All right. Our last quick hit is
my goodness.
We don't even have to clip.
I think I sent you this.
We don't have to do a video.
Did I send you this?
I don't think you did.
I don't know.
But okay, Alex, you can show this on the screen. This is Joe Biden's photo, Easter Sunday, saying Happy Easter, everyone.
From somewhere in Delaware.
Yeah.
Happy family.
The family looks great.
Looking all casual and nice.
But is it not just completely obvious that Joe Biden is photoshopped into this photo?
It is. Where's Joe Biden? It begs the question: is Joe Biden still alive? Is he amongst the living?
The proportions are close, but not really there.
And why is he in a suit?
He's in a suit, and nobody else is even close to that dressed up. I think this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sadly enough, once you start photoshopping Weekend at Bernie's, you're in a different phase at this point.
I mean, if at least do him in. I mean, he can have the jacket on, just lose the tie.
Yeah.
Do they not have a photo of him without a tie?
Well, they have a lot of photos of him on the beach, but that wouldn't. I don't think that would
work
fit
for this. So
that wouldn't work.
I think that certainly a problem. Anyway, like and subscribe, folks. We appreciate everything that you do to help us be successful
and grow the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great one.
God
folks.
bless.
Take care.